the entire world is talking about Will Smith, Jada Smith, and Chris Rock, and the whole 9 yards of drama that transpired during the Oscar award ceremony a few days ago. On a personal note, I don't follow celebrities. As I don't follow any stars, I don't read tabloids or gossips as to what celebrities do with their private lives or the kind of clothing or vehicles or wristwatch they wear. I don't do any of them. I think it's one of the ways that the system, the metrics, is trying to harvest our energy to give to the stars. I know when they talk about stars, they are talking cryptically. They're talking of fallen angelic collectives because they are the stars. They are the watchers who fell on the three-dimensional reality, and that star worship is an inverted way of giving our energies to the real stars who are the fallen angelic collectives. Well, today I'm not talking about metaphysics. I'm not talking about the occult science, but I just want to chip in a little bit as to the incident that took place, because this involved two black men in the act of global international stupidity in the full view of the entire planet, perpetuating the same perception that many people around the world have about black men: crude, barbaric, animalistic, lacking self-control, not able to exercise self-regulation. That is the perception that the media has perpetuated for a long time about black men. What happened? What happened that triggered Will Smith to take such impulsive, instinctive, irrational action? We look at celebrities and politicians and corporate leaders and very successful people, we think their lives are perfect. But when you look at human behavior from the point of view of psychoanalysis or psychodynamics, psychodynamics deals with examining people's behavior based on repressed memories, repressed traumas that we are not consciously aware of, which determine our action and responses to the world external to us. And these triggers, right? These external triggers are not the problem. The problem is the internal mechanism, the cognitive frame of references within our psyche. That is what needs to be healed. Because if you are not healed, everybody around you will piss you off. Have you ever greeted somebody good morning and you just like ignore you, or you just like feel that you've done some horrible things to them, or you can even say bad things to you because you say good morning? They are not responding to you. There are trauma buried within them that they are responding to. Have you ever seen somebody whose interactions and relationship with people are full of conflicts and disagreement? Oftentimes, it is not about the external stimuli. It is about the internal process, the internal stimuli. And if you don't heal yourself from within, everything around you will be a trigger code, a trigger mechanism. The problem here, using psychodynamic analysis, the problem is not the joke that Chris Rock made, because just a joke, that's what comedians do. And throughout history, kings even have had jesters and clowns in their palace to make joke and sometimes to mock them, because it provides comic relief. Has always existed in the world. And if we are coming to a point where people cannot crack joke because people have repressed internal triggers, then that is a problem, because you're going to see people start shooting people because they're pissed off with what people say. And that is why, for example, in the United States, you have the freedom of speech, which means you can say things. It's legal. The fact that you respond negatively means you work on yourself. I'm not saying that. Of course, there are people who intentionally go and provoke people, but I don't think that was the intention of Mr. Rock. Initially, when Mr. Rock made that statement, you see that Will Smith was smiling, was laughing. That was the original him. That was the true Mr. Smith. That was the real him, because he comes across, I don't know him personally, but he comes across as a very jovial, easygoing, likable guy. But there are these other psychodynamic issues he's dealing with, repressed memories, traumas that he has not processed very well, he has not dealt with. So that is what triggered him. Remember, he wrote a book, and in his book, Will Smith discussed how his biological dad was extremely abusive to his mama. And you know, as they say, black men and their mamas, they love their mamas, right? So he talked about this man as this huge shadowy monster, this huge shadowy beast that was verbally and physically abusive to his mother. And as a child, he did not have the temerity, the strength, the audacity to confront his dad. Do you think this trauma has left him? No. At the back of his mind, repressed in his subconscious, he put it out in his own book. He wrote it. Any good clinician who examines what transpired on the night of Oscar Award and who have read Will Smith's book will say exactly what I am saying. He saw his dad as this shadowy figure, this evil character at the back of his mind that he was not able to combat and to fight as a little child, watching his mama over and over being abused, being intimidated, verbally, physically, aggressively attacked. So he felt inadequate as a man. And men and boys, grew up programmed by the society to have ego. Every man has some kind of ego. There's ego going on in men. And his ego was not allowed certain expression, because probably when he was small, if he had raised a finger, his dad would probably beat the hell out of him too. And he said it in multiple interviews and even in his book. He wants a perfect family, which he lacked as a child. You see, it is the repressed trauma that was popping out, right? The repressed trauma was popping out. And despite the fact that Jada has not been that good, to some extent to him, he continually shows her love. He's a pleaser. He wants to please his wife because probably he was projecting his mama's trauma onto Jada. Jada becomes this very fragile, feminine entity, even though Jada is very strong. But he sees Jada as this little vulnerable woman that needs to be protected, because in his mind, let's say using psychoanalysis and psychodynamics, he is trying to protect Jada from his daddy, who is repressed in his subconscious mind. Jada too might have unresolved trauma. I don't know her background. She hasn't, I don't know if she's written a book. I would have loved to read her book and just examine and see her background and know what she has been through as a child. But I bet you that if you examine her background very well, you will identify trauma. So what happens when two people come together with unresolved trauma? What happens when a group come together and indulges in group interaction and all of them have trauma? What happens? The drama begins to act out. Right? Nobody listens to each other. There are emotional manipulations going on here and there, not consciously, but unconsciously from the subconscious level. There is an American psychiatrist who has done great work on family systems theory, the dynamic of emotional relationship within family. And a lot of clinicians and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists use his work when dealing with family as a system. What you look at is the emotional undercurrent. Emotional undercurrent. You look under, see where unresolved traumas within family and how, if not resolved, we continue to play out in public, we continue to manifest in drama. His name is Murray Bowen. Murray Bowen, the Bowen theory of intergenerational family trauma is very crucial. Many psychologists and therapists use his method to work with family, and he spoke about intergenerational transmission of trauma. If you have two people who are engaged in relationship, if this trauma are not resolved, it will continue to manifest. Will Smith, that was sitting down and laughing at the joke initially, was not Mr. Smith that stood up to go and smack Chris Rock. The one that was sitting down was this innocent, jovial, happy guy. The one that stood up was a triggered Will Smith. Was it Will Smith that was responding based on the internal stimuli of trauma that he is dealing with, particularly looking at his own childhood background and abusive relationship, emotional triangulations within his family. So the one that stood up to go and slap Mr. Rock was a mind control one. It was almost like a mindless act. And you see that Jada gave him that classic reaction. The reaction was not for Chris Rock at all. The reaction was for Will Smith. You weak man. When you understand family systems theory, the family system, how system works, emotional interactions in the family, most of the rules that family have are unstated. They're not written down, but everybody understands it. You might come to a family and just observe who is in charge, whose emotional reaction controls the rest, right? It might be mom. Mom might just walk by and everybody keeps quiet without mom saying anything. Mom's energy and emotion controls everyone. It might be dad who is overbearingly controlling everybody within the system, within the family system. Dad might just come back from work and everybody disappears. Nobody says anything. You see, dad's energy controls the mood of the house, right? It might be a 5-year-old whose mood and emotions run the house. Yes, I've seen a house where 5-year-old control everybody. Don't say it doesn't happen, because even newborn babies who don't act rationally, they act based on impulse, based on instinct. They too have trained themselves to even manipulate the families, manipulate the mom by, for example, crying. To manipulate emotions is instinctive. If you study Eric Bain's transactional analysis, Eric Bain was a psychologist who studied human behavior, human relationship and interaction, and he came up with the theory called transactional analysis. So in every interaction between people, there are games, unconscious games being played, right? There are unstated rules that are playing out. When two people come together and say even, how are you? Or good morning, there are unconscious games being played that we are not often aware. And if we don't know how to handle these games, sometimes it can lead to the drama. And the drama is not just drama. The drama is because there are unconscious, unresolved trauma that is within our subconscious level of mind. When you observe family very well, especially dysfunctional families, there are emotional triangulations, emotional enmeshment, emotional fusions, homeostasis that are negative, right? Which keeps and sustains order. It keeps and sustains order. And that is why family therapy is one of the hardest things to deal with, because when you try to break these negative patterns in a system, you see initially mama will be shouting, daddy will be cursing, and everybody will be upset because they don't want this initial homeostasis to be destroyed. They don't want the undercurrent to be exposed, the negative undercurrent that determines the negative patterns of behavior to be distorted. But to create A positive healing means that you will distort the stability, because the seemingly stability is a negative pattern, and you have to destroy the negative homeostasis or the negative stability to create a new relational patterns that is healthy. So Chris Rock made the joke, and Will Smith initially was laughing until Jada gave that classical eye rolling. Eye rolling was not for Mr. Rock. It was not for Chris Rock. It was for her husband. You weak man, you incapable man, you are incapable of protecting me. And because of emotional triangulation, there's something called emotional triangulation. Will Smith understood the communication. The communication was non-verbal. Remember, 90% of our communications are non-verbal. So what you say does not matter. It's these other body languages that actually expresses what you truly feel within your subconscious realm of mind. So Will Smith decoded the message and, like a mind-controlled slave, just stood up mechanically like an empty shell. He wasn't thinking. The whole world is watching a black man going on national, or rather global, international television to slap another black man. That was a mind control slave. That was a man who was not logical. That was not his original self. This brings me to a play by William Shakespeare called Macbeth. He is very erudite in analyzing the human behavior, in going deep into the human psyche, both individual and collective, and explaining behavior of people. In the play Macbeth, we see that Macbeth had a wife, Lady Macbeth. And Lady Macbeth understood her husband's insecurities and egos. Remember, men have egos naturally. And women who understand this can manipulate any man they want to manipulate. If you just understand the empty ego drive of men. So Lady Macbeth understood Macbeth's insecurities, drives, and egos. He had intention of being a king. He had intention of being successful to be a king. And his wife engineered him to go and kill the current king, King Duncan, to replace him and to become a king. He did not want to do that. He was a good man. But then his wife began to engineer him with subliminal seductions and manipulations and tricks, using words and playing on his insecurities and his emotions and his egos. And finally, she was able to manipulate him to be a killer. So Macbeth went and murdered with a dagger King Duncan. And not just that he committed one murder, his wife kept engineering him, right? And he killed more people, even though his conscience was burdened by his actions. He wanted to please his wife. He just wanted to make his wife happy. And we've seen this act out even in the society, where you see some men in the presence of women, they just want to fight and pull off their clothes and show off their abs and their arms, how strong they are, right? If you go inside, you see, these are just kids. These are just people just who need some, who are looking to fill in certain unmet emotional needs, right? By appealing to the attractions and the attentions of females. So, following his wife's suggestions and seductions and playing on his masculine ego, his low self-esteem, and really engineered this dude. And he became a murderer. And his conscience, after all the killings, his conscience was weighed down. And his wife kept trying to make him believe everything was okay, as we didn't do anything wrong. We see the classical example of emotional enmeshment. At a point, Macbeth was going psychotic. He began to hallucinate. His conscience was bothered. He was troubled with guilt. So he was breaking down mentally, and his wife kept engineering him, keep pushing him with seduction, with manipulation, with tricks. So he became psychotic and was hallucinating. He began to hear voices like somebody who is psychotic. He was going mental. Voices talking to him saying, sleep no more, for Macbeth has murdered sleep, sweet innocent sleep. And his wife kept telling him, you're good, you're perfect. William Shakespeare did not discuss Lady Macbeth's childhood backgrounds and trauma, but anyone who is familiar with psychoanalysis or psychodynamic would probably conjecture that her own neurosis was acting out. Her own unmet needs led to exhibit such high tendency, high propensity to manipulate people, including manipulating her husband and putting her husband in a harm's way. And we see the same similarity a few days ago when Jada Smith just did that classic eye rolling. It wasn't for Chris Rock, it was for her husband. Like, do something, I'm here. If you don't do something, I go home, I'm going to call you a weak man. You see? And Will Smith stood up like an autobot, like a robot, just moved straight and went and slapped a man. That was not him. That was a mind control individual. His wife engineered him. A healthy relationship is being able to, even your partner, tell your partner, no, I can't do that. That's healthy. We also heard about women who get manipulated by their male partners, even to become a drug dealers, even to go to jail on their behalf. They are also under mind control. When you are under mind control, you behave like a robot. You don't think. But a healthy relationship is being able to tell your partner no. Say no. It is healthy to tell your partner no without the other person thinking that saying no means you don't love me. Putting yourself in an unnecessary harm's way, then that is called manipulation. And many relationship is based on this dynamic, this force, unhealthy emotional fusion. Bowen's theory of family emotional fusion explains this very, very well. This is what many psychologists use when they deal with family to examine the emotional undercurrent that is dictating the drama we see manifesting when people interact. So Will Smith needs some help emotionally. He's insecure. I know he's a star, he's rich, he has money, and he might not see the need, but he needs help emotionally to heal his mind from the trauma, process himself, to restore his self-esteem so that Jada will not manipulate or engineer him to his own detriment, to his own destruction. Look at how he has become like a laughing stock all over the world because his action, men don't act like that. Naturally, his action was impulsive. And I'm not saying that men don't defend their family. Of course, I believe every man should probably get yourself well armed. If somebody messes with your children or with your spouse or with your wife, you can fight. But not based on irresponsible manipulation, but not based on impulsiveness, not based on irrationality and things that are unreasonable, are just making jokes, right? People will continue to make jokes are not going to stop at all. And that's why some people are not qualified to bear arms, to have guns, because you start shooting people randomly because there are things. The problem is not the external stimuli, but the internal stimuli, the trauma they are dealing within yourself. And if you have trauma, go and heal your trauma, because the world is not going to stop because your feelings get hurt at all. That's not how things work. You go and heal yourself and know how to interact with people on a healthy way, because as I say, many people in the world have lots and lots of baggages going on, and that have led to people dying at the flip of the moment, because what was said was not the problem, but what was inside of you, the trauma you're dealing with, is what the problem is. And as I said, you heal your trauma first and then you can interact with the world. That's what healthy interaction is. And I wish somebody who knows Mr. Smith, we ask him to go and look for a good clinical psychologist to go and get some help because he needs help. I saw the man that stood up and slapped Chris Rock as a weak man, as a broke man, a man whose emotions are unstable. Could you imagine if you are a president of a country? People make fun of you every day. People are going to make fun of your children. They're going to make fun of your wife. How balanced are you in your psyche to see that it is not your problem, it is their problem? And if you're a president, are you going to pick up a gun or order your secret services to go and beat people up? That is immature. That is why those who find themselves in the position of leadership, their mental health needs to be stable and they need to be balanced.